This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. We're coming to you live from Manila and Thailand. Hello, Esther. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Alma. I'm Esther Odanga from EBC Thailand Bureau, bringing you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines. The Coast Guard said a search was underway for 20 crew members missing in the Philippines after their cargo ship ran aground while seeking shelter from rough waters churned up by a typhoon.
Philippine ambassador to the U.S., Jose Manuel Romualdez, said the United States government is obviously waiting for Manila to call if it needs assistance in removing foreign vessels staying unauthorized in the country's exclusive economic zone.
In Thailand, the Public Health Ministry is considering taking legal action against a number of COVID patients who refuse to be transferred to field hospitals for treatment.
Itong i-distribute ko pong one-page brief.
The country is set to conduct clinical trials on the use of anti-parasitic drug ivermectin and others like virgin coconut oil in a bid to find treatments for COVID-19.
First, here in the country, the Coast Guard said a search was underway for 20 crew members missing in the Philippines after their cargo ship ran aground while seeking shelter from rough waters churned up by a typhoon. The crew abandoned the vessel laden with nickel ore on Monday after it hit the shore at Malimona town on the southern island of Mindanao. Coast Guard spokesman Armando Balilo said 18 of them were still in a life raft when contact was lost on Tuesday. The whereabouts of the other two are not known. Balilo said they had not received a report on the condition of the Philippine-registered Cebu Great Ocean, which was carrying 2,000 liters of diesel fuel. At least 2 people have died in the central Philippines, 3 now for the latest. In the central Philippines, as Typhoon Surigai skirted the country, forcing nearly 160,000 people to seek emergency shelter from flooding and strong winds, according to the disaster agency. Surigai is not expected to make landfall, but it's packing maximum sustained wind speeds of 175 kilometers an hour near its center, nearly 500 kilometers off the country's east coast. Thousands of people and hundreds of vessels were stranded at seaports, according to authorities, as the typhoon moved slowly in a northwesterly direction off the main island of Luzon. The Philippines is hit by an average of 20 storms and typhoons every year, a dangerous and disruptive part of life in the country.
Philippine ambassador to the U.S., Jose Manuel Romualdez, said the United States government is obviously waiting for Manila to call if it needs assistance in removing foreign vessels staying unauthorized in the country's exclusive economic zone.
Well, as you know, both our military, the armed forces of the Philippines and the Pentagon have been communicating. Secretary Lorenzana had a recent telephone conversation with Secretary Miller here in the United States. Both are obviously working together, and the United States has just recently sent their USS Theodore Roosevelt, and they had an operation there at the West Philippine Sea. So we are working round the clock, so to speak, in terms of being able to navigate or make sure that there's the freedom of the seas and that freedom code of conduct that we're pushing. At the same time, the United States is obviously waiting for us to call them if we need their assistance in removing or asking the vessels that are parked in our area of responsibility or economic zone. And both our Philippine Navy and the U.S. Navy are working together on this one.
The Philippine government, through the Department of Foreign Affairs, earlier issued a barrage of diplomatic protests against the continued presence of Chinese vessels in the Julian Felipe Reef and several areas within the country's EEZ. In a public address on Monday, President Rodrigo Duterte warned China that he will send gray ships to the West Philippine Sea should it start drilling for oil in the disputed waters. The Philippines appreciates the statements of support from its international partners who share common adherence to rules-based order consistent with the international law, according to the National Task Force West Philippine Sea.
Staying with the Philippine ambassador to the United States, Jose Manuel Romualdez, he said that the Moderna will start its vaccine rollout in the country by mid-June with the delivery of an initial 200,000 doses. While the first tranche of delivery is small, Ambassador Romualdez assured that the bulk will start coming in on the third quarter of this year. Again, let's listen in.
Salamat, Secretary. Well, one thing for sure,
wala atang volume, no?
Yung bakuna natin na in-order, yung Moderna. Kinonfirm sa akin ng Moderna
ETV4?
that they will start delivery starting June 15.
Wala atang volume?
That is the target date. And I think that they're quite confident that they'll be able to start rolling in the vaccines or the delivery of our vaccines starting June 15. And then it will start increasing as the succeeding months, July, August, September, up to the end of the year. They will complete the 20 million before the end of the year.
Sabi niyo po 20 million yung Moderna, pero yung ano po yung expected na first tranche na darating po sa atin ng Moderna?
Well, medyo maliit lang kasi talagang inano lang nila yan. They were able to just get some vaccines that were available. Ito kasi galing sa Europe ito, hindi galing dito sa Amerika. So we were able to secure something like close to 200,000 ng Moderna na mauuna dyan sometime around middle of June. Pero as I said, yung pinakamalaki starting July, August, September, palaki na yan. Now, the other good news na Harry na binigay sa akin ng Moderna is that meron silang booster shots that they've already developed and they're now on clinical trials. Ito kung ma-approve ng EUA ito sometime around September, babagay yan sa mga those that were able to take yung Sinovac, for instance, o yung AstraZeneca. They can use this booster shot. It will not. It will complement it, as a matter of fact, to give it that push, to give it the more effectivity, especially dito mga bagong mga variants na dumadating sa atin ngayon. So on that, in my view, magandang balita yan na. Tsaka alam ko nahihirapan tayo ngayon dyan, pero I'm very confident na by the end of this year, a large majority of our people will be able to get the vaccines.
Local government units have until May 15 to distribute the cash aid to 22.9 million low-income residents of the National Capital Region Plus affected by two-week implementation of enhanced community quarantine. This developed following appeals from several LGUs to extend the deadline for the distribution of assistance in NCR Plus, which covers Metro Manila and the provinces of Bulacan, Cavite, Laguna, and Rizal. Let's listen in.
pumunta po tayo sa usaping financial assistance. In-extend ang deadline na makumpleto ang pamamahagi ng financial assistance hanggang 15 ng Mayo 2021. Ito ay dahil sa mga sumusunod. Una, tayo nasa panahon po ng COVID-19. Bawal ang malakihang pagtitipon-tipon. Kailangan pangalagaan ang kaligtasan at kalusugan ng lahat. Pangalawa, inaayos ang paraan at ginagawang flexible ang pamamahagi kung ito ay automated o bahay-bahay. Pangatlo, may mga apila sa mga lokal na pamahalaan.
Now, the Philippines is expected to receive about 20 million doses of coronavirus vaccines developed by Russia's Gamaleya Research Institute within this year, according to Philippine ambassador in Moscow or Russia, Carlos Soreta, on Tuesday. And in the next few days, the ambassador said the first 20,000 vials will be delivered, followed by at least 500,000 doses before the end of April or May of this year. Take a look.
Well,
Thank you
when it
po.
comes to the vaccine, we're looking at 5 figures within the next few days, or 20,000 will be coming to the Philippines. And shortly after that, before the end of April or early May, we're looking at 6 figures, almost 500,000. And over the next few months, we're going 7 figures, so over about 20 million doses before the end of the year. We are very happy about this development, and although it took a while, it was unavoidable. The FDA, ginagawa ho nila yung kanilang trabaho, ngunit meron konti mga differences sa terminologies, sa technologies. So those have been overcome. And I think there will be a delivery as scheduled based on the agreement signed by Secretary Galvez. Oh, I'm sorry, the temperature requirement. My understanding is we have complied with their requirements because they would not deliver unless they're satisfied na yung logistics side po natin. Kaya yung unang 20,000, yun po ay gagamitin para ma-fine-tune yung logistics on our end.
He said the Philippine Embassy in Moscow is also monitoring the vaccine production and has been engaging with different firms tapped to produce the shots in Russia. According to Russian news agency TASS, Sputnik V may be stored at 2 to 8 degrees centigrade for 2 months. But developers are hoping to extend this for up to 6 months.
Former Malaysian leader Mahathir Mohamad delivered a petition to the National Palace Tuesday urging the king to revoke a COVID-19 state of emergency, saying it had transformed the country into a dictatorship. The monarch declared the nationwide emergency in January on the advice of Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin in a bid to fight the coronavirus as cases spiraled out of control. But Parliament was also suspended, promoting critics to accuse Muhyiddin of using the virus crisis to cling to power after allies in his crisis-racked ruling coalition deserted him. On Tuesday, 95-year-old Mahathir, who was Prime Minister until his government collapsed amidst infighting about a year ago, brought a petition with over 39,000 signatures to the National Palace in Kuala Lumpur. The petition, delivered along with other opposition politicians, warned the emergency was damaging the economy, Malaysia's image internationally, and democracy. Before heading to the palace, Mahathir warned in a blog post the emergency was undermining the rule of law and the country was being ruled by decree. The voice of the people in a functioning democracy is via parliament, but it is not open, wrote Mahathir, who was prime minister twice from 1981 to 2003 and 2018 to 2020. The only description we can make of this government is that it is a dictatorship. He also said the emergency was about a weak government wanting to stay in power and not about fighting COVID-19. Supporters of the state of Emergency, which runs until August 1, argue it is needed to channel extra resources fighting the outbreak. Muhyiddin, who came to power in March last year without an election following the collapse of Mahathir's government, has vowed to hold national polls once the pandemic is over.
Setelah mempertimbangkan nasihat Jemaah Menteri, Sri Paduka Baginda telah berpuas hati.
Esther and I will be back right after this short break. Stay tuned.
Oh babe, I love you. Wala na ngang iba. Dito sa puso ko ay tunay kang nag-iisa. Ingatan mo itong pag-ibig na para lamang sa iyo sa habang panahon. Kaya ingatan mo ito na tina.
Hello mga kaibigan, ako po si Chad Borja. Sana po abangan niyo ako bilang isang guest performer sa Letters and Music this Sunday, April 25, 1 to 2 p.m. dito lamang sa Net 25. Maraming salamat.
Welcome back. You're still watching ASEAN in Focus. And now let's go over to Thailand, where the doctor from the Chulalongkorn University has reported that 7 people who had received the Sinovac vaccine or the Sinovac jab has experienced or suffered from partial paralysis. Tell us more. Cristel Di Marukot joins us live from Thailand. Hello, Cristel.
Good afternoon, Alma, and to all our viewers. Yes, that is true. According to Bangkok Post, Alma, a doctor from Chulalongkorn University said that there are 7 people who suffered from partial paralysis after receiving the Sinovac vaccine. Kiravat Hemachuda, which is the director of the Health Center of Emerging Diseases at Chulalongkorn University's Faculty of Medicine, posted last Tuesday that 6 of them were in Rayong and 1 is at the Queen Savangwadhana Memorial Hospital in Chonburi's Sriracha district. He also wrote that their conditions have improved after doctors conducted medication to dissolve blood clots and that the hospitals had reported their conditions to the Public Health Ministry. In addition to that, he posted that their conditions might have been caused by certain lots of vaccines and not by all of the vaccines. While another doctor from Chulalongkorn Hospital stated that the latest wave of this COVID-19 is highly contagious and that severe cases are expected in intensive care units or ICU. The chief of King Chulalongkorn Memorial Hospital Center of Emerging Infectious Diseases, Dr. Opas, posted that the latest wave is more severe than the prior rounds as it has been proven by more than 200 instances at the hospital. He said that in the first wave of infections, the virus in a patient's body usually declines after 7 days. Even they tested positive after a PCR test and that the virus could not be cultured. However, in the newest wave of transmissions, the virus could still be cultured after 10 days, which means it can remain in the body for longer. On Tuesday, Tawi Sleep spokesman for the Center of COVID-19 Situation Administration reported 1,443 new cases of the novel coronavirus, raising the total number of confirmed infections since the start of the pandemic to 45,185. Of 16,119 patients, Alma, are currently being treated, while 223 are severely ill and 55 on respirators. And that's the peak update here in Bangkok, Thailand. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Cristel Di Marukot from our EBC Thailand Bureau. Thank you for joining us today, and you stay safe.
Thank you, Alma. You too, stay safe. Reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand, this is Cristel Nicole Di Marukot, and we live in interesting times.
Now, staying in Thailand, the country is setting up 25,000 beds in field hospitals across the kingdom as it battles a new wave of COVID-19 after the discovery of the UK variant. At Bangkok Arena, 350 beds made of cardboard are lined up for the asymptomatic patients and those suffering mild symptoms as home quarantine is not allowed in the country. The capital appears to be the epicenter of the kingdom's third wave after infections were traced back to a nightlife district earlier this month. In the past 10 days, the national infection total has jumped from 29,900 to more than 40,500. The sharp increase probably due to a highly infectious variant of the virus originally found in Britain. Authorities have instated inter-provincial travel restrictions right before Songkran New Year festivities this week, usually a period when Thais vacation or return to their hometowns. The typically rowdy holiday is also marked by water fights on streets, but Bangkok was quiet this week, with bars, restaurants, and night markets closed early. New restrictions will bite from Sunday, including an alcohol ban in restaurants and bars, while entertainment venues will be shuttered across the country for 2 weeks.
Staying in Thailand, the Public Health Ministry there is considering taking legal action against a number of COVID patients who refuse to be transferred to field hospitals for treatment. According to the Bangkok Post, Deputy Public Health Minister Satit Putitocha said 74 COVID-19 patients, mostly in Bangkok, opted to stay home instead. These patients told the ministry that staying at field hospitals would be inconvenient for them. Now, the health minister said every COVID patient must be taken care of by medical personnel from the Ministry of Public Health at a ministry medical facility. Otherwise, they violate the communicable disease law. He also argued that COVID symptoms could get worse at any time, making the risk greater for them if they are not closely monitored by medical personnel. According to the health minister, these patients were reportedly from the cluster linked to pubs and bars in the Thong Lor area. Police on Tuesday summoned 2 executives of the Crystal Club and Emerald Lounge for questioning on May 3 at Thong Lor Police Station. They are accused of violating the emergency decree and opening the entertainment venues without permission.
The Director General of the World Health Organization, or WHO, said new cases of COVID-19 increased for 8 weeks in a row, with more than 5.2 million reported, the most in a week so far, and alarming hospitalizations among people aged 25 to 59.
Good afternoon and good evening. Last week, new cases of COVID-19 increased for the 8th week in a row, with more than 5.2 million cases reported, the most in a single week so far. Deaths rose for the 5th straight week, and more than 3 million deaths have now been reported to WHO. It took 9 months to reach 1 million deaths, 4 months to reach 2 million, and 3 months to reach 3 million deaths. Big numbers can make us numb, but each one of these deaths is a tragedy for families, communities, and nations. Infections and hospitalizations among people aged 25 to 59 are increasing at an alarming rate, possibly as a result of highly transmissible variants and increased social mixing among younger adults. We have the tools to bring this pandemic under control in a matter of months, if we apply them consistently and equitably.
Meanwhile, more than 900 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines have been injected in at least 206 territories around the world, according to an AFP count. Some 48% of the doses have been administered in high-income countries, accounting for 16% of the global population. Just 0.2% have been administered in the 29 lowest income countries, home to 9% of the world's population. The COVAX facility ensures the 92 poorest participating economies can access coronavirus jobs with the cost covered by donors.
Meanwhile, here in the Philippines, the country is set to conduct clinical trials on the use of anti-parasitic drug, ivermectin, and others like virgin coconut oil in a bid to find treatments for COVID-19. In a taped meeting with President Duterte, aired late Monday, Department of Science and Technology, or DOST Secretary Fortunato de la Peña said the clinical trial may take around 6 months, but this could be shorter if there would be many volunteers. Again, let's listen in.
Itong i-distribute ko pong one-page briefer ay nagsasaad dito kung sino yung pwedeng mag-lead ng clinical trial po sa ivermectin na ikukumpare po dun sa ibang standard of care na. Yung pong ginagamit na ikukumpare siya. So ito pong napili ng or nakita na pwedeng magsagawa ay taga-UP Manila sa Philippine General Hospital, si Dr. Eileen Wang, babae pong doktora. At gaya nga po ng nasabi namin, pinakamahina po 6 na buwan kasi sa clinical trial marami po talagang pinagdadaanan. So kagaya po ng aming eksperimento sa virgin coconut oil, nakita po namin doon sa mga mild cases, doon sa suspects and probable, na yung pong recovery period nung nag-take ng BCO ay 5 days earlier than dun sa hindi nag-take ng BCO. Kaya hindi lang naman po ito inaaral natin. Marami po tayong possible gamot o therapeutics na pwedeng makatulong sa recovery period. BCO, virgin coconut oil, ngayon po ay ginagawa namin yung clinical trials para sa mga severe cases sa PGH.
Meanwhile, the government of Cambodia said all foreigners who are stranded there with no flights to return home who have an expired visa, tourist visa, are eligible to take the COVID-19 vaccination. Government spokesman Pai Sipan told Khmer Times that everyone is entitled to get COVID-19 vaccines, saying there's no prejudice with vaccines. He urged them to contact the health department for a schedule. Some foreigners who have expired tourist visas have expressed concerns over whether they will be rejected for the COVID-19 vaccination, and those rejected whether it was due to their expired tourist visas. Meanwhile, authorities said last week that hospitals in Phnom Penh were running out of beds and that they had transformed schools and wedding party halls into treatment centers. Phnom Penh and adjacent city Tak Mau were Wednesday night placed under lockdown for 2 weeks to curb the spread, effectively halting movement of more than 2 million people.
Meanwhile, the Philippine Navy is exploring ways to collaborate with the Turkish government in its ongoing modernization efforts. Take a look. Vice Admiral Giovanni Carlo Bacordo, through the Philippine News Agency, said, quote, the objective of the visit was for the Philippine Navy to explore methods of collaboration with the Turkish government in terms of pursuing current and future modernization efforts. Bacordo said the delegation the visit was at the invitation of Askeri Fabrica V.E. Tersane Isletim, Military Factory and Shipyard Management, a state-owned defense contractor that is directly under Turkey's defense ministry. Mr. Bacordo, meanwhile, noted that the successful engagement with the Turkish Navy is perceived as a significant opportunity that would jumpstart future cooperation in maritime security through naval exercises, personnel exchanges, and education and training, among others.
Alma and I will be back after a short break.
Tita, kaya niyo pa po ba? Kakayanin ko. Kailangan mahanap natin ng ano. Sige. Tanda na po.
Kilala niyo po ba siya?
Benedict Salazar. Alam ko na ang sikreto mo, Maya.
Dalhin mo ako sa location ng hilaw na Espanyol.
Nag-hire na ako, boss. Nagagawa niya para sa'yo.
Ako na mismo gagawa ng trabaho para sigurado tapos.
Parang may bisita eh. Tago ka. Huwag kang gagalaw dyan.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced. Eagle News, because we live in interesting times.
Welcome back. The EU confirmed Tuesday it was slapping a 56% tariff on imported Harley-Davidson motorcycles as part of a trade war former U.S. leader Donald Trump started in 2018. The American motorbike maker has said it will immediately mount a legal challenge to the measure, which is to take effect from June 1, after the EU imposed retaliatory levies on emblematic U.S. goods in reaction to Trump's decision to hike import duties on steel and aluminum products manufactured in Europe. Harley-Davidson thought it had found a way to escape the higher levies of shifting some of its motorbike production to Thailand. This allowed it to import its motorbikes made outside of the U.S. into Europe via Belgium at a much lower 6% tariff. But the European Commission says that will not fly. Harley-Davidson's use of Thailand to build some of its motorbikes provoked the ire of Trump, whose protectionist campaign was aimed at boosting American-made goods made in America.
To Vietnam now, where the Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh on April 20 received a phone call from his Singaporean counterpart Lee Hsien Loong, who offered his congratulations to the new government leader of Vietnam. Now, during the call, Prime Minister Lee congratulated Vietnam on its successful organization of the 13th National Party Congress, as well as the country. Its effective management of the COVID-19 pandemic, the socio-economic development and foreign affairs, affirming that Singapore gives high priority in relations with Vietnam. Prime Minister Pham thanked Prime Minister Lee for his congratulatory message and call, expressing his wish to work closely with the Singaporean leader to further strengthen the Vietnam-Singapore strategic partnership across fields. The two prime ministers rejoice at the positive developments in bilateral cooperation regardless of the difficulties caused by the pandemic. Particularly in 2020 and the first quarter of 2021, Singapore was the largest foreign investor in Vietnam. The Vietnam-Singapore Industrial Park, or VSIP model, is operating very effectively, becoming a symbol for the success in economic collaboration between the two countries.
Meanwhile, National Economic and Development Authority Director General and Acting Secretary Carl Kendrick Chua said that there were 9.3 million jobs created in the country as of February 2021 after the gradual opening of the economy. Let's listen in.
Mr. President, just two more, no? Kasi ang dalawa pang sinusubaybay namin sa NEDA ay yung trabaho at yung kita. Bago po pumasok ang present spike ng COVID, malaki na po yung improvements natin sa job market. Last year po, between January and April 2020, we lost 8.7 million jobs. Kasi yung April last year po, nag-impose po tayo ng very strict na ECQ. Pero dahil nagbukas po tayo dahan-dahan in the safest possible manner yung ating ekonomiya, by February 2021, we were able to create 9.3 million jobs. So ibig sabihin, nabawi na natin yung mga nawalan trabaho at nadagdagan pa natin ito by 600,000 jobs. At ito ay mahalaga dahil ito yung nagpapatakbo sa ating ekonomiya. Yung ating unemployment rate ay medyo mataas pa at 8.8%. Ang hinahabol natin sana by next year ay bumalik na sa 4 to 5% unemployment rate. At yung huli po, mahal na Pangulo, na sinusubaybay po ng NEDA ay yung kita o yung income or sweldo ng tao. Dahil po sa spike ng COVID cases, meron po tayong nakikitang pagkawalan ng income. For every 1 week na nasa ECQ po tayo, 19.6 billion peso po ang nawawala dahil hindi po lahat ay nakakapagtrabaho at sumisweldo. For every 1 week of MECQ po, 14.7 billion po ang nawawala. So total po, dahil 2 weeks na po yung ating ECQ at may madadagdag pa na almost 3 weeks na MECQ, so total of almost 5 weeks, ang epekto po sa ating tao ay 83.3 billion peso in foregone wages. At ito po ay siyempre one of our concern, pero naniniwala kami na dapat magtulungan po tayo na para masolusyonan na itong spike para dahan-dahan na natin pwedeng ibuksan ulit ang ating ekonomiya.
In other news, 2 Indonesian hackers have been arrested over an international scam in which $60 million was stolen from a COVID-19 aid program helping Americans left jobless by the pandemic, according to authorities. Text messages were sent to 20 million Americans, directing them to more than a dozen fake U.S. government websites. Police in the Southeast Asian nation said late on Thursday. Thousands of victims supplied personal information, and that includes social security numbers, to the fake sites in the hopes of securing $2,000 offered under a real assistance program for the unemployed, according to authorities. But their data was instead used by scammers to steal millions of dollars from the program. East Java Police Chief Nico Afinta said some 30,000 U.S. citizens were scammed and the government's financial loss is up to $60 million. The 2 suspects were arrested last month in Indonesia's second biggest city of Surabaya after police were notified by U.S. authorities. Indonesian police did not say how long the scam had been running. The pair could face up to 9 years in prison under Indonesia's electronic information law. Police said they were investigating the possible involvement of a third person who may have secured funds illicitly.
ASEAN and Italy convened the inaugural Asean-Italy Development Partnership Committee meeting today. The meeting took place online, marking the launch of ASEAN-Italy formal partnership, where both sides identified a number of mutually beneficial projects and programs of cooperation. At the meeting, Italy announced its intention to contribute 2.5 million euros to the COVID-19 ASEAN Response Fund to support ASEAN's response to the pandemic. Officials from both sides discussed the recent developments in ASEAN and Italy, including efforts to address the pandemic as well as initiatives towards recovery through the ASEAN Comprehensive Recovery Framework. ASEAN and Italy also deliberated on ways to deepen their cooperation in key areas such as cybersecurity, transnational crime, law enforcement cooperation, cultural heritage, digital and smart cities, green infrastructure, public health, tourism recovery, space cooperation, and gender equality and women empowerment.
The Asia markets today saw big falls with fears over a renewed coronavirus surge weighing on global investor sentiment and U.S. equities, deepening their retreat from last week's record highs. Countries around the world are urgently working to accelerate vaccination campaigns and revive their pandemic-ravaged economies, with new variants of the pathogen driving unprecedented infection numbers in some of the worst-hit nations. While both the Dow and the S&P 500 finished last week at new peaks and also posted their fourth consecutive weekly gains, shares have fallen over the past 2 days as earnings season entered its second week. Losses were also sharp in Europe, and with both London and Paris ending around 2% lower. Tokyo led the sell-off, with the Nikkei down more than 2% by the break after the port city of Osaka, where hospital beds were seriously ill, coronavirus patients have run out, asked the central government to impose a state of emergency. Hong Kong was down 1.8%, with Chinese entertainment giant and index heavyweight Tencent tracking the market fall. Sydney was down 1.6% despite stronger than expected retail sales data, while Seoul, Wellington, and Singapore all fell more than 1%. And the news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. Esther and I will be back right after this break.
Ito na ang pagkakataon mong ipamalas ang natatangi mong galing sa pagkanta at pagsayaw. Kaya if you have what it takes to become Bitagisa ng Galing Part 2 Grand Winner, ipadala na ang inyong audition videos. Kung ikaw ay 18 to 65 years old, may angking galing sa pagsayaw at pagkanta. Ipadala na ang inyong audition videos sa tagisananggaling@gmail.com or contact Nikki sa 0977-651-9504 para sa singing category. Shing sa 0995-880-8004 at Nini Bell sa 0995-330-4653 para naman sa dancing category. Narito naman ang guidelines sa paggawa ng inyong audition videos. You can also follow and like our Facebook page at Tagisa ng Galing and Net25 for more information. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Tagisa ng Galing and Net25. Kaya ano pang hinihintay nyo? Sali na! Ipakita ang inyong galing, manalo ng 2 million pesos at maging bahagi ng pinakamalaki at pinakamalawak na talent competition on Philippine TV and online. Tagisan ng Galing Part 2!
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization, startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Your weekly dose of entrepreneurial inspiration to update you on the latest developments in the world of business. Get up close and personal with CEOs and thought leaders to help you discover valuable insights, sharpen your instincts for smart decision making with the latest markets and economic trends, disruptive ideas, global innovation, social entrepreneurship, and other leading-edge business ideas. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business, from vision to action.
Welcome back to the program. Finally, in our news, almost 500 Thai national athletes in 16 sports are now at a training camp preparing for the 10th ASEAN Para Games. Kongsak Yodmani, governor of the Sports Authority of Thailand, says the SAT and the Ministry of Tourism and Sports play a role in supporting Thai athletes and help them to prepare for the Games, both physically and mentally. This includes working with sports association to train the athletes, physical science services, healthcare, physical therapy, and psychologists. Jutinan Birombak, the chairman of Paralympic Committee of Thailand, says the committee would like to use the ASEAN Para Games as a platform to promote new athletes who make up 30% of total. He hopes Thai disabled athletes will gain experience in order to advance to a higher level of competition in the future, such as Asian Para Games and Paralympics. As the country's representatives, the athletes promise to do their best. The 2020 ASEAN Para Games, officially known as the 10th ASEAN Para Games, is an biannual multi-sport event for athletes with physical disabilities. It will be held after the 2019 Southeast Asian Games in the Philippines from January 18 to 25.
Thank you for keeping me company today, Esther.
Thanks, Alma. And that is the latest news in Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Esther Odanga from EBC Thailand Bureau, and we live in interesting times.
We'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.